Okay. Right, the recording has started. Hopefully it plays.
More so.
It plays just fine. Perfect. So, if you guys remember, Skye has been nerfed in one of the most recent patches. She was a hybrid initiator, okay? And what happened was when you use her flash, you had the potential to not only flash the enemy team, but you would also get information if there was someone around that vicinity. And people were using her as a hybrid for information and uh, aggression, that you were able to kind of make different comps alongside of it. So people were able to use more double duelist, double controller, double sentinel. They were way more they were way easier to make simply because you had that extra slot that Skye was already taking up, right? So we had Skye taking 2 slots, so that extra slot could be used for more varied comps. Whereas back then, as you can see from the little comps that we're showing here, they used to be a lot more rigid. It used to be double initiator, it used to be an entry duelist, it used to be a single controller, and so on and so forth. So when double controller started to become a little bit more meta, people were like, how can we make this the thing that we can use from here onward? Because I don't know if you guys have noticed about the maps. Okay, they are already pretty defender sided with how much utility you have to clear and how much you can use to sort of prevent pushes. And what double controller did is make that even more so. It made it more egregious. Okay, so maps that were pretty attacker sided were starting to become defender sided because of the double controller meta. And well, with the different maps, you can kind of just fit to whatever playstyle you're playing. So if you weren't even at like the top of the crop, tier 1, you were still able to do something about it because you're thinking, oh, okay, well, we didn't really get a chance to fight ops, but now we have like extra smokes to kind of give us more cover, or rushes were really difficult to play with, so now we have more extra like patches that we can kind of put across, so you can reduce sightlines. You can have like double sentinels if you feel like that's something that you really need, right? So what we're going to be looking at are 2 very popular teams playing a very similar comp. In fact, it's the exact same comp. Okay, it's going to be something like a Jet when Jet was still pretty strong. Okay, we're going to be seeing a Sova, a KO, a KJ, and an Omen. This is a pretty standard comp. At least it was back then. We're going to notice that as time progresses, we're going to be doing a review of Ascent again once players start to realize, Skye isn't as strong anymore, and we might see Fade potentially show up in the lineup. Okay, I think I already mentioned that in the description of what this class was going to be. People are already looking into no flashes. Okay, that's actually something that I've been noticing as well from a lot of different analysts. They're kind of mentioning that they're pulling away from like flashes, and they're going for that close range utility that maybe a Fade can kind of provide, right? So that's basically what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at all the rounds potentially in the first half. Okay, there's really no points of interest. I really want to make sure that we can analyze like every single thing that kind of comes in, and then after you guys have learned a little bit of how attack and defense plays, we're gonna get a chance to practice on the scrim. So that out of the way. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, no from there, and nobody else. It looks like. Oh, I'm assuming that was a no. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's actually get started. Okay, so like I already mentioned the comp that's starting to happen.
Ascent is going to come down to how comfortable
Everybody
these
has a
teams
very
are
similar comp.
being able to construct little plays on the fly.
So you're gonna notice that right on attack, generally when you use knife, you're using it for different pieces, not just utility, but for shutdown. And it seems as though it had the intention of shutting down KJ, which was already counter. Okay, so something that you had to do with Skye was simply you start a flash, you'd be able to get some pieces of information. There had to be positional countering when it came with KO. So now that Cypher's a little bit more popular, playing a Cypher either outside of sight wherever you're playing, or playing far away from the reaches of the dart might actually be more meta. I found that some KO players find lineups from like the outskirts of like main lobby or tiles or whatever, and what they do is they throw a lineup that lands on top of the box that covers the majority of the site, so there is no potential countering with the position. Okay, you're gonna notice that with that positional countering, we have this, and you're gonna notice that KO. This is something that I need to see more KOs do. KO has he has massive delay. Okay, the same way that like maybe for example a harbor can just put up a wall and then a cascade and then another cascade, right? Like the amount of potential delay that he has. All he has to do is the second he feels the push is coming, he just has to shut him down with a knife, and that's it. They're gone for whatever time period he has, and then he can throw a nade on the floor if he feels like they're gonna still push through, right? Pay attention to how he starts to use it. The second he feels the push is happening, notice how everybody has been delayed in the back there. He doesn't even have a nade, so he just has to worry about the crossfires here, and now he's completely isolated to Jet simply by using a knife.
Straight away being played into the back of the side. That's an updraft over the top, and guess what?
That's a shorty.
Yeah, looking to the back of the side. You can hear it running right into them. Surely holding the anchor, and you just don't anticipate that while all this was happening. Oh, it's a call. A little bit of an adaptation. Trying to make the moves. Wading all the way through into their spawn. And Sassy can't get the second. Flash through into the back of the side, but easily stopped.
So we just witnessed was a pretty simple, just kind of like retake before site was completely taken over. And this was just because of that knife. Okay. Good positioning from the enemy team. Okay. Over here we saw pretty much how Loud decided to position themselves away from knife range, and then this allowed them to be able to kind of scatter themselves, and then once they felt the push was coming, they can just stop it with a knife, and then the rest of the team can kind of come in when they're pushing towards B side. One thing you guys have to consider when playing team comps like this is because you don't have Skye with the amount of information that she offers, you guys need to be able to pick a site that you want to retake at the beginning of the round. Okay. Okay, we're going to be playing more towards B. Okay, be ready to retake that side. Okay, KO's going to be playing here. That's what we're going to be doing. A, well, we don't have anything for that. Okay, and you guys can either choose to do quick rotations on a site, or you can choose to give up side for that reason. Okay, you're going to notice based on the position that they had at the beginning, they didn't really work for A main a lot. Okay, all they were going to do is put that smoke there, and if they took it, that was completely fine. They gave that up. Okay, whether you want to call it a read, whether you want to call it you know, future proofing, you have to make sure that you're putting that ahead of time, and that's how you should be playing around with a KO, and that's how you used to be able to play the game back then.
That's an updraft over the top, and guess what? A little bit stopped.
That is
yeah, now we hop on to the eco.
He's playing on site.
In round 3, I'm gonna be talking a little bit about how you should be buying on third round, especially with the outlaw coming out. Sorry, not coming out. That just came out, and especially with now how teams tend to save. I find that saving is really strange, considering that a lot of players tend to win rounds and they have no money. So we're gonna be looking at loss bonuses. Okay.
You don't expect that on pistol.
Oh, absolutely not. And that is crazy. Did he buy both on the pistol round? Did he buy a frenzy?
The else bought it for him. I'm not too sure.
Well, you can buy one smoke and still have 150 remaining.
Yeah.
Wild stuff. Well, pistol goes the way of Loud there. But Sentinel's already showcasing that they've got the coordination to run some fast and aggressive execute. They showed us that on Haven too.
Start paying attention to this smoke down mid. Okay.
Ascent is a difficult map to try and chew your way through as well, though, on his attack side. It does test that coordination. Pushes it to its limits. Aspas didn't have a...
So what exactly happened? Beginning of the round.
Sentinel's already showcasing that they've got the
smoke was placed towards mid. Okay. When you would play Skye, it'd be just something as simple as throw a flash down. It'll regenerate by the time that retake has to happen, so we can just throw it freely. Okay, that cannot happen anymore. You have to make a decision as to what you're going to be winning and what you're going to be losing. I think that this was a complete misplay, by the way, that Loud is playing. Okay, and Sentinels decided to just kind of try their luck. When you put a smoke down the middle here, okay, it opens a bunch of different pathways. Okay, the first pathway is simply if they're blocking this sightline, that means they want nothing to do with this. Okay, and if they want nothing to do with market, they want nothing to do with pizza, they don't want to take that space, then that means that the only potential pathway for them to take is going to be A. So this opens a lot of A attacks for the defenders to be aware of, just because of that right there. And what they can do is they can either flush out of this smoke and play off of it, or they can do things like, for example, like they do here.
The coordination.
Okay? They just kind of play for it, and they just kind of hold off angles for that area right there.
Run some fast.
However, the big mistake that they made is that they had absolutely zero pressure from tree. Okay, they saw the smoke. They didn't really prepare for an attack. I believe that this was because they had a better. I mean, they had better guns at this point, right? So they were probably expecting, if they come A, we're going to deal with everybody A main, and then we can pivot ourselves towards tree. But because they forgot all that information,
Ascent is a difficult map to try
all
and
of this
chew
was
your way
left
through
open.
as well, though, on his attack side. It does test that coordination.
and unfortunately it ended in this.
Pushes it to its limits. Aspas didn't have his dash active. Couldn't get out of there.
Wow. Well, that's a big loss early on.
Yeah, activated a little bit too late, but still into that 4-on-4. And I guess
Notice how, because of that loss right there, notice how they pivot towards tree. Because they knew because of that smoke right there, okay, that means that they were attacking towards mid. They might attack towards tree.
that's what Les has taken all that ground straight through B main. So this is a lot of information he's going to be providing.
I think they have some idea about this. Marved was jiggling it. Kind of. Zekens holding. Does Pancada swing?
Oh my goodness, that was a straight shot across the map right into the head, I think.
Sadak's weak. Les is weak. This could end up...
Okay. This right here, if you don't see this smoked, this is a really good play. Just get information down lane here. Figure out what's going on.
This could be dangerous.
All you have to do is just jump on this
there, but
fountain. You get all of this view towards mid.
Has been slowed to a crawl.
They confirmed
40
nothing.
seconds left.
Another just making an expectation that they might re-hit A,
Okay, turret's
which
back
was,
online.
of course, the
Watching
wrong
B main
choice.
angle.
Pancada's
But that's
gonna have
okay.
a bad time fighting the turret.
They'll have
Yeah,
easy
well.
information coming in from B
Needs
main.
help.
Not a fight he wants to take.
30 seconds left.
Got the backup though, so they're going to be double swinging it now with the dash active. Shot down close just in
Around-
case there's util.
Right here, we're starting to notice the effects of not having constant flashes, constant information. Okay, we have to make deliberate choices as to what we're going to be doing and whether we want to lock that down. By no means do I think that the game is becoming worse because of it, but I do believe that we're not going to be prepared for that change,
There, but over the top into the side, and it's going to be a freebie. Look at that smoke.
as it was a lot easier to
Lovely
get
placement
information.
of that one just to get
and make
everybody
plays.
into the site. Lineup almost paying off here. And all that util, everyone is so damn low.
So again, notice how we don't have those flashes. Usually we just see a flash down mid if you really needed that information. Now we have to body
Like a
it.
slam
You have
dunk
to
for
body check
Loud,
this.
but anything can
You have
happen.
to swing things.
It really gets hectic. Util in their hands now. Shot dart.
Pay attention to their setup. You're going to notice that these guys are kind of just playing off of each other. We have one trade here. We have one trade here.
Uh-oh.
That lands
Because we're 4-4, as long as every single one trades one another, it's just a matter of who trades more.
a little bit too close, I think, there towards the stairs and forwards into the smoke. This is where it could get dangerous, but no. One player left is Pancada at the back, and he's hunting for something. The right click's there. Play is weak enough, but not another kill found.
Clean this
Look
one
at their
up.
bio, okay? Pay attention to this bio
2-0,
right
but
here.
It's expensive. Not going to be the greatest here. And I think they've figured a couple of things out, too.
If they
one,
would
the
let me
third
see
map-
the buy.
He's back with a
Okay, you're going to notice right here. These guys right here are just making sure that they have enough money right there, right? Look at their buy, okay? They start buying just enough so they can get for next round. This guy's obviously buying for potentially an up. Over here, this guy's just going to be just buying just a little bit. And the reason I want to pull this out, the reason I want to point this out is because I see a lot of teams that they bonus. And maybe they'll hop onto the 4th round. They'll have enough money coming in from 3rd round. And the main problem that arises is simply they lost so much money potentially with 3 players and they move on to like round 3 or round 4 and they're saving. Okay, this is actually something that I saw quite recently where you need to look and pay attention to something called a loss bonus. There's no reason for you to save onto a round that you just won, right? In this situation, right, everybody's bonusing. This is fine. Like, this is just something that's really common standard. Like, this is a common practice. But on rounds like round 6, 7, or 8, let's say, for example, you just won a round that nobody in your team can buy, it is much better for you to force up, okay? And this is just one example of that, right? This is just standard practice on round 3. But you're going to notice that, oh, we don't have enough money much later down the line. And I just want to introduce that idea. Much later down the line, you'll notice, oh, we don't have enough money. Okay, let's just save up, even though we just won the round, okay? I need you guys to start paying attention to that type of money, especially on the scrims, because I see that a lot of players haven't even started their loss bonus. They're not even really far into their loss bonus. They just won a round. They just have no money. And what they're going to do is they're going to save once, and they're going to lose that round because their money's really bad. And now they have to save again because their money's really bad. They haven't gotten that loss bonus, right? So it's better to like just kind of force, try to see if you can get as many rifles as you can. With the current meta, especially in ranked, what you could do is, if you are really good at clicking heads, and I'm just going to encourage this if you feel like you got your aim labs down, okay, On round 1 and 2, try to just kind of play with the pistol you're really familiar with and carry that pistol over. So for example, if you played round 1 and you used the Ghost, okay, you don't really have to buy much on round 2, maybe just a shield, then you're good to go. If you played Classic, okay, you can invest on just maybe more utility. If you kept your shield, I would encourage you to buy a stronger rifle and carry that over, because that money is gonna basically double up by round 3. And what you can do that is, you can pass your gun, you can pass your shorty, whatever it is that you had, you can pass it over, and you can use that money to essentially make a bigger splash on round 3. Okay, right now, pretty standard. This is how the game used to be played 9 months ago, so you're not gonna see anything too out of the ordinary.
Certainly has been.
Dash forwards. That's a little bit of a pop flash play here, but most teams know how to recognize this now, and look at that, no casualties. Pancada, he's all the way backed.
It's extremely aggressive. Sassy is still droning this one out. They know that there's likely to be one player anchoring. Les is in a very dodgy spot.
Oh, close corner! Second does get it though. There's opportunities for Leicester maybe do that damage, anchoring it to the back of the site, but it all comes down to a lot of these timings. It looked like Aspas wanted to try and take the flank. In fact, he might still want to push in mid.
And Loud's biggest strength has been their retakes on the defense side. But that was with the Viper Harbor.
Okay.
How good do they look here?
They push them back here. The players are low enough. Darts only just been dealt with. It's going to be lighting them all up. And look at this. Loud looking more than favored. And here's that flank coming through. Pancada, he has to adjust his attention. But by the moment it's left down the mark, with 24 health left, the jump peak will do it in a bonus round.
Really good retake. Let's just really quickly re-summarize what just happened. Yep.
No casualties.
We had a pretty strong early attack. They realized we don't have money. Let's just try to make a splash, catch anyone off guard if we can. They didn't do anything too crazy. They just sent utility down mid.
Certainly has
Right?
been.
They're just trying to figure out exactly where the enemy might be going. They just want to hit them early. Hit them with a surprise if possible, right? They hit a flash here, which happens to hit the KJ to kind of get them off guard. And notice how the flash is kind of intended for anyone that might be a little bit pushed back. Okay.
Dash forwards. That's it.
I don't really believe that anyone that might be hit here by the frenzy is going to do any like carnage at this range, but you know, it's just about swinging here.
Of a pop flash play here, but most teams know how.
But because now they have the advantage of this amount of space, they've lost mid, they've lost B main, and now they have complete control of A main.
To recognize this now and look at
Or
that.
at least they have an idea of where they're going to be A main.
He's all the way
Okay?
back.
It's extreme.
So all they have to do is pinch them.
There's opportunities for Leicester maybe just do that damage, anchoring it to the back of the site.
They've confirmed the plant, so now their entire protocol has switched from control space, control the amount of swings that we can do, and instead just complete retakes. They've lost a bunch of their flashes, right? They've lost Lemon Flash, they lost one of their flashes here. I believe that this is on their way back, right?
To a lot of these timings, it looked like Aspas wanted to try and take the flank. In fact, he might still want.
If you're a developer in developing initiator,
push in mid.
And Loud's biggest strength
notice how they use cooldown rotations
has
here.
been their retakes on the defense side. But that was with the Viper Harbor.
Okay.
How good do they look here?
Okay. Notice how they used enough time here. They stalled a little bit. They just try to make sure to hold the line here. And this is where I find players to struggle. Make sure you're paying attention to your teammates' cooldowns. Okay? What Loud decides to do is simply do this. Hey, I have this much from Dart. I used it at the beginning of the round, which is very similar to what people would do with Flash on Skye. Okay, well, I also use Dart. I use this. I use that. All right, we're going to stall this point right here. I'm going to give you guys quick information on what we can do. This is what Sova does. You would have done that with Skye Dog, for example. You can do that by maybe throwing a molly if you want to delay an area so they don't push you farther back. Okay, anything like that. You can use that little piece of information that you can use from initiators to kind of hold the line. And what this is doing is that it's delaying so you have your cooldowns back. Okay, and you can do this with any character that has a cooldown. Whether it is KJ, hey, you know, I just recalled my turret. I'm going to use it so you guys can attack. I'm going to put it right on top of this area, right? Anything like that. Any cooldowns that might be rotating, okay, make sure that you're looking at other pieces of utility that you can cycle. Back then, she had 2 smokes, so I can throw smokes over here, maybe, for example, if I was with my team, just so they can have enough time and we can slowly eat up a little bit of space, okay? It's just a matter of how you use your utility. There obviously will be a better, righter way, in quotations, right, that you can use your utility, but at the end of the day, when you cycle these really strong signature abilities, you're gonna have a higher chance of winning, because all they did, right, was they just cycled it so they can have this, and now they have Dart Okay, so now they managed to get one and then the other.
That's only just been dealt with.
So now that they confirmed so much information, all they have to start doing is swinging. Okay, they put in an elevator smoke. They send it all the way to the top. As they clear one area, it comes all the way down. Now everybody's ready to swing.
Loud looking more than favored, and here's that flank coming through. Pancada, he has to adjust his attention for but a moment. It's left down to Marth with 24 health left. The jump peak will do it in a bonus round for Loud.
Fell to pieces.
Really good
the best
round.
economy, even with a bit of an over.
Do you guys have any questions so far?
Nuh-uh. No.
Okay, cool.
Sentinels were able to get into the post-plant positions that they wanted, but second with a bit of an overheat perhaps up towards heaven, and then they weren't able to control that A heaven sightline at all. There's nobody playing dice, or Sentinels are not a team that's got all of this stuff drilled. And that's okay, that's expected. But that is also where Louder
So, do you guys remember what I mentioned about that loss bonus? Look at what Sentinels just did, just exactly. They've lost 3 rounds in a row, which allows them for round 4 for basically a force buy. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about. Okay, this is where you use your economy at its best. Okay, I find that a lot of players in round 4, they're like, oh, we've been losing so much. We have enough for a little piece of utility and maybe half shield deagle. And that's not to say that the deagle isn't bad. I mean, I push for the sheriff a lot. It's one of the best eco weapons that you can use currently in your arsenal. A strong team with full sheriffs can wipe out a team. It's really good. Problem is that you want to make sure that you're, optimizing the amount of chances you get to fight. And if that means sometimes having a half shield and a rifle or maybe a bulldog, you might have to go for that route as well. Okay, so that's exactly what they did as we introduced in round 3. Like round 3, we just have them trying to play for a little bit of better eco, right? But what these guys did is they're just looking at their loss bonus after 3 rounds lost, and now they're using that to push forward with better money. Okay, and they're trying to hit a better attack. So far, their strategy on attack for Sentinels hasn't been too much about, control this, control that. It has been more about kind of like preparing for a fight and setting up a fight towards the site. Okay, it's generally been towards sending a dart. Okay, if we get that knife hit, then we can kind of confirm where they might be in a certain vicinity. Okay, as you've noticed, they've kind of used their knives either in close range or in long range, depending on what they want to hit. Okay, generally they want to either confirm someone that might be pushing up, like they did on round 2 because they lost round 1, or like they did on round 1, they want to lock down an area. And because they're having a really hard time hitting the sentinel, they're instead going to start changing and pivoting the way that they use their knife.
If your Sentinels, your fears are going to be collapsing in this final map. Another win potentially in the Americas. Split that you let slip between your hands. It happened last week.
That would be devastating if the story was the same again. To think only...
Okay, both of their pieces of utility have been exhausted. Okay, one thing that I will notice from teams, especially in the amateur stage, is that they'll use these 2 pieces of utility at once. Okay, when you're using something like KO and Sova, you have a lot of utility for information. Do not use them at the same time. Maybe if you're retaking, it's better to kind of spread that out into one area. Like for example, they did one here and then the other one was right here, right? They did 2 different things in the same area, right? But don't just throw like a dart B and then like a dart A at the same time. Okay, it's not really gonna do much. They did one. Oh, there was nothing here. Okay, let's check mid. Okay, we got a bunch of footsteps. We got a bunch of shots. Okay, they have mid control. And then from there, they can start kind of having an idea of what we can do towards tree.
A couple of rounds away from 2-0ing Leviathan and Loud. You hope to convert at least one of those situations.
Yeah.
But in this series, it just feels like it's been incredible the Sentinels even got to that point. We're certainly hoping for something similar on map 3.
It's an exchange of the utility back.
I think I missed.
Yeah.
But I just know. So I was gonna mention the other benefit of just making sure that you use your utility. You can also confirm what kind of guns they have. Okay. What I like to do in my own gameplay is sometimes switch to like a secondary gun. I'm not gonna give away that I have a rifle. As for situations like this, it might just be minuscule. I think they already expect the rifles considering how much they scrim, but just think about that in your future game. As for the knife, notice how now that they've gotten so much information, they've switched the way that they use knife. Okay, they just don't do it in case of what they're gonna be like trying to do and try to get like a little bit of main, maybe execute towards sight. They've kind of stopped doing that for this round and they're changing it up. So what they've done is they pivoted their strategies. So they kind of changed the way that they started. They went a little bit more passive towards this line right here. So now they're playing for a little bit more control of main, a little bit slower, trying to get a feel for what the enemy is doing. Because Loud so far has started from really strong stacks towards one site to really strong retake potential to really strong like push out of one lane to get control of it. Right? So what they need to do is realize, okay, we have not had anything from just striking a site, so we're just going to default. So far it's working for them. And this is what allows them to just get a deeper knife right here.
You hope to convert at least one of those situations.
Yeah.
Okay, knife confirms closed. Knife confirms that the KJ might be on site. Sorry, on mid.
It's been incredible the Sentinels
Nothing so
even
far.
got to that point. We're certainly hoping for something similar on map 3.
It's an exchange of the utility back and forth as we reach that minute mark in the round.
The alarm
Knife
bot not
doesn't see-
broken.
Yeah, the alarm bot wasn't broken towards mid, but the knife didn't see anything towards A.
Okay, they're
but
cycling, right?
I do have a good
One
setup
just
here.
got
Tears with
used.
the jiggle
This
peek.
one will come back
Shouldn't be
soon.
Too much danger, but
anything.
wow, he didn't see anything, and now he's backing.
Now it's back.
And Sentinels have been gifted perhaps the perfect timing. Smoke though dropped down. There was something to indicate that one. Paranoia as well cuts its way through the dart. Doesn't quite reach him. Down into hell here. They're not dealing with these players effectively enough, and still opportunities to take these fights, but eventually spammed out of the position.
Recon dart, nobody broke it. Okay, doesn't scan anybody though.
Smoke to replace it now. Straight through the door, trying to play the retake. Now with the operator
Marv
tags.
ulted and stuck it in mid.
Yeah, I mean, he
Doesn't scan anybody though.
Smoke to replace
Look what
it now.
happens here.
Straight through the door,
All towards mid.
trying to play the retake. Now with the operator
Marv
tags.
ulted and stuck it in mid.
Notice how they shift their focus because of that.
Yeah, I mean, he is just in.
I'm going to continue the recording here
See y'all.
just because of that. Let's see. If I recall correctly, I was talking about, well, if this part is is accurate at all. I was talking about how they slowed it down. They had a shift in playstyle. And I was going to highlight how they can use a slower playstyle, a default, and be able to
But in
explode
this
on the
series, it
last
just feels
little
something
bit
bloody
here,
bad.
I
You'll
believe.
set up.
Yeah.
Paranoia as well cuts its way through the dart. Doesn't quite reach to take these fights, but eventually.
Yeah, okay, this is the explosion. TP from behind. We pinch the enemy
And four
team.
when the three just astounded, bewildered. One kill got for him, spraying it down. Knows where he is, could be sticking. Forced to overpeak it down.
Yeah, there was that.
Gone for that, but he got it. He
Yeah, this is where we
Stuck
were.
it. Yeah, I like
those situations.
Hello?
Got to that point.
Mark in the round.
Yeah, okay, that's where it was. Okay, good.
Yes, could be.
See, it really is. But he got it. He made it work
Yeah, I like to think that he didn't say anything in the comments when he was doing.
nicely.
Okay.
Surprised he did. Sadak didn't quite
Obviously,
get
this is the
trade
type
and
of playstyle that we'll try to emulate while we're in our games. So, if you have a hard time kind of following up your team, kind of having a hard time thinking about what other things you guys can do, okay, and just try to follow the footsteps of the one that's close or right next to you. And you guys can do play styles like little plays like this, right? One goes in, the other one comes out with him. Okay.
Stuck it.
One swings out,
I mean,
the other one's ready with
he got
him,
the time.
right? Just double swing.
time in
Right?
nicely.
One swings out, the other guy's reading these guys right here as they're pushing out. This guy comes out with him,
A potential
right?
double kill there on.
If it wasn't for this, they would have been
That's
just
how
fine.
easy-
And that's a really good play by Marv.
Missed it the
Right here now. Okay.
This is-
Perfect.
Going to be opping over towards A again. This is a big fight in A main, and Sentinels have been winning it.
Tag to push off the angle.
Oh,
Paranoia
big player.
repick, yeah. Wants to try and fight this. Second though. Close has the dash to disengage out, even though there was a fragment at his feet. Everybody's just
players.
backing away, yeah.
3 players caught in that knife. Big knowledge that they still are hanging around that area, but the fact that the paranoia was used to re-clear means you still know Sadak has those 2 flashes. He could try and swing back in. Now the Sentinels players will be feeling.
Okay. So what have we seen so far? We're noticing that Sentinels is still keeping this sort of default kind of going. A little bit weaker now that we're kind of moving towards A, but it's still a default nonetheless. It seems as though they're playing a little bit less for picks and more so for space. So the second they feel some sort of space being taken back from the enemy team, they're using that as a way to kind of figure out where they're going to hit next. Okay. This is why they're trying to use this right here, right? They're thinking that they might be holding all of this. After all, a knife just hit. So they're trying to use that to their advantage. Whereas on the opposite end, we saw a huge push from A main. Okay, the push from A main has allowed them to figure out where exactly they're leaning towards. Doesn't mean where they all are, but a leaning push is generally where you think the majority of the enemy team is going to be kind of hanging out. Okay, so what they do is they hold these lanes accordingly. We have someone holding main, we have tree, we have mid. With these 3 areas kind of locked down, now we know where we might be able to potentially hold them off. With different maps, it kind of changes. And, oh god, Valorant kind of shut down too. When you're using other areas, right, for example, for the map, like what's a good map that I can kind of explain here? Let's say we use something like bind that's not as, you know, it's not as easy to explain, for example, with something like teleporters, right? Because there's not an extra mid lane. Teleporters exist, right? So let's say, for example, we think that they might be leaning towards B. A good defense might be to hold out something towards, obviously, here, because this allows you to hold this lane. Something towards here, because it allows you to hold this lane. But then the opposite, of course, is there's no mid. So you can't really have a mid kind of pushing here. So the best way to play towards this area on bind is to hold TP, to get close towards TP, hold TP. You're not really holding towards A. This is just kind of something you can do if you like. You have like maybe 3 players here and then another one right there. But if they decide to start pushing out potentially right here onto short, well, now you have TP to be able to pinch them, right? So it's that idea of being able to control those adjacent lanes. And that's what mid is about. If you look at something as like Lotus, for example, right? You can control this as a good example of it. Like, you don't have to control this area right there. You can have one player holding this. This is where ops become really, really useful. But then you can start doing things like holding link. You can hold this area right here. And then you have players that could be holding on these areas as well. Let's say you want to hold towards mid, for example. You have this doorway. You can open it. You can use mount for cover. And then you can use all of this lane right there and play off of the guy that's playing towards B, right? So you're going to notice of how they pivot is shown right here based on where they think they're going to be leaning towards. So we think A, they lean towards this mid area, okay? And now they're holding every potential lane that's towards A. This is useful for cutting off rotates, and this is really useful to keep information enclosed into one area, because the only way they would be able to avoid any of this information is by rotating all the way through spawn. And that's time that they waste, potentially, because they don't really lose sight. They still have KJ on it. They still have 2 people that can easily rotate. So they don't really lose anything because of this. Okay? So it's something to keep in mind.
Pressured here.
One of the things I'm noticing about this Sentinel squad, this iteration of the roster, is how slow they've been playing a lot of their attack side rounds.
I wish
They
you
mix
guys could
in a
hear
lot
the
of those
thunder.
fast bursts. It feels like a punch in the face sometimes, but they're not afraid to really cut down the time. We saw it getting incredibly close on the first map.
Yeah, going for a lot of late hits.
So what we just saw right here, obviously,
The time we saw it
we're getting rid of that information early.
incredibly close on the first map.
They're starting to kind of pivot. They realize this information's happening.
Yeah, going for a lot of
A little bit
late
of
hits
spam
with
right
Omni.
here. Okay, this spam right here can be A, just to kind of deal with anyone right there, but it's also a good way to kind of suppress any potential plays. Oh, they're just spamming. They're trying to look for a pick. They're still defaulting, right? Kind of use that little like mind play there.
30 seconds left.
Kind of
Sometimes
outplay
even
them
less.
just by simply thinking, oh, they're going to be doing this and that. My suggestion, instead of doing something like that, is maybe hit that information early, but it seems like they wanted to sell an A push at the beginning.
Yes. The 0 point, did that catch Marv? Shadows traveling. Do they have any interest in making this
Smoke out here.
anything other than a B hit?
Notice how they react.
Didn't break
Both smokes.
the alarm bot, but that's
Immediate
like,
pivot.
I mean, that suppresses less. They can get into B.
yeah, his info, or at least his
The information is now being relayed. Nothing was hitting. Okay, nothing was hit. Like, it wasn't like this 2 smokes and then they hit A. They immediately started rotating. If you have a really hard time figuring out whether you should rotate or not, ask, are there smokes down? Okay. Most of the time, 85 to 90% of the time, smokes is where they're going to hit.
gonna be down there, not able to activate those nano swarms, and look at Marv just doing what he does best. Finding those cheeky little timings, immaculate.
Wait, are they worried that this could be an A hit? No.
Push on the way through,
They
pushing, pulling.
They've got the idea now, but
Back
Marv
and
is
forth.
he's deep in enemy territory.
Yeah, right in the middle of nowhere here. Bit of spam coming into the back of the site. Just with that
Really good move from Marth. He gets a pick. He doesn't keep pushing forward like I see a lot of you do. He actually goes towards mid.
Odin, it's all about these kills that Marv's able to find right now. It's all over the place. Alarmbot spotted, should be aware of it. Les was watching, but no way! 2 kills. And a crosshair placement. Aspas found the angle. Do they still want to try and go for this one? They need some sort of kill. Was Zekken low enough to...
Notice the setup. If you guys are going to play towards B, we have 2 towards there, 1 forward. Okay, we have an extra player. 1 can play towards this area over here in intro. Yeah, they can play towards stairs.
Spam could potentially find him, especially when he's close onto the corner, but it's counter spam. Play can't break the dart. Eventually dealt with. Time running so damn low here. And at this point, it's just trying to play the exits, trying to make it dangerous, trying to make it expensive. The round's going to be 1 for Sen, nevertheless. Not getting away with it.
Okay. Once more, they won. Okay? Sentinels won.
When you're playing attack side Ascent, you will get
their money is really bad. They have no loss bonus. Okay.
Thankfully has a blade storm that they can work with. Marv, though,
and notice what they do with their buy.
Doing his own thing. Yeah, be in at the end of the month.
Okay, they try to push up for as much as they can for money. Okay, this means less utility in some ends, maybe less shields. Try to figure out what util we can use. Oh, I have rocket or something. I'm gonna go in and try to use showstopper to get a kill, and then maybe get someone with a shorty, for example. Right? Notice how they use their money. We have knives. Okay, stuff like that.
But so far so good. He's just been making waves in this series.
Get out of my way.
Playing Catwalk gets alert pick, paranoia all the way, just running around playing his own little game. And actually, the buy is much better than I thought.
Really good lineup. Just lands over here. It's a delayed push. By the time that the knife lands, you already have some time back on your knife. That's kind of where the skill curve kind of starts going up. You have the lineups to kind of show you yourself apart from the rest of the enemy.
It's full rifles from everybody on Sentinels, apart from Zekken, who has a blade storm. A 3-player stack to
what we were just talking about earlier. Notice how they just decide to go for, shutting down the information first. They're not doing really anything to maybe push out, but getting rid of that information puts the stress on the KJ. Because if they push out here, it's the KJ's fault.
Again, allowed up and going
so even if you don't push out, even if this guy were to rotate back, even if Aspas decided this is not his fight, they've gotten rid of this information. And these guys have to respect it. So it does 2 things. Number 1, either they have to push faster to avoid someone pushing in and getting them from behind, or they have to respect that space and they have to fight back for it.
Hey.
Oh, this corner. Sadek had the nade.
This corner's good, but now he can't use his fragment.
He's playing close because he anticipates the flash.
So they decide to go for the push.
Popped over the side. This corner. Smoke at his feet. He was playing anti, but Zekken clears it. Dashes to the side. Def gets dropped down. No, that spam picks up. Bit of a gun, maybe even potentially an upgrade here in the form of that judge, and everything comes down to that.
Or the timing.
In mid. Yeah. Entire map feels like timing's being taken because no one's aware.
And there it is. They didn't really respect that space. They got taken down because of it.
This one, Aspas round the side. Zekken swinging through all the way round, and he's being covered.
This is bonkers.
Spike in the hands of Sassy. He's going to get that plant down.
Aspas got rid of his operator, picked up a phantom instead. Faking up towards heaven here. Wow, that's quick! Incredible shot.
Spam onto the corner because he knows the Zekken has to try and clear this when he anticipates a player close. Dissipates, dashes forwards. No time wasted. One shot doesn't do it. Can't get the kill with it. And Aspas is just demonic, man. The way he's been moving around this map.
Okay, we have enough time for one more round. We're going to look a little bit later here. I believe, no. Okay, it's this one. Okay, what we have here, let's just set the stage right now. Okay, over here, Loud has won the majority of the rounds. They have a big round lead. Okay, so they have these buffer rounds to kind of iron it out. If they do lose some rounds, they have 3 rounds to bring it back up. They have 4 ults. Okay, whereas on the other side, they only have the 1 ult over here that they're going to be using for attack. Okay, their money is not looking too great, but notice how they're going to start trying to stabilize as much as they can. Look at the way that Sassy plays here after he buys. Okay, and last but not least, okay, pay attention to how they use these ults.
But they've had that for quite a while, and they've not really cooked anything up with it. Meanwhile, Loud, tons of ults. Good retake ult with the null command, or good to just stop an ult from stop a hit from coming through anyway. And Kawanzine could play plant denial from many different spots with his Hunter's Fury. there's always somebody with Aspas at the beginning of these rounds, and that is such a difference to the way that other teams play it a lot of the time.
Really is. So knife down to tiles, doesn't spot anyone there. So Aspas is aiming his sights down onto top mid, but it was a smoke in his face. Flash.
This is information from Sadak. He's heard a lot of noise in A main, and he's calling for the operator to rotate.
Yep.
Aspas does not want to be playing retake with this.
You should run.
So wants to hold the angle now. Still has the dash. There's a gap here as well. He can play in this. Ult into the back of the spawn. Marv try to get cheeky with it, and the Hunter's Fury is going to deal with that lockdown so damn easily.
I would have been tempted not to use it for that, and instead try to support Aspas as he takes the first shot. He had a little pocket there he could have played from.
Dash forwards though. Play with a flash over the top. No kills just yet. Flash over the top as well. At least the smoke to try and block this one. It's even. Sadek's been dropped to his knees. Quick squad, quick shot. Still Aspas is alive. In the action with the knives and 2 years as well, anchoring it down. Mankata with the most to do and with the triple swing facing him.
Okay. Pretty much what they've done here is because they noticed they had a round, they had both a round and an ult lead. This is actually something that I talked about before, and that's just ult economy. Okay. Ults are a really good way to kind of change the tide of a round. Okay. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can kind of look at ults. You can look at ults that counter plays. You can look at ults that make space. You can use ults for different types of things, right? There's the ults that just kind of vary depending on the amount of money that they have, right? They can get really easy kills, or they can get really easy sights, something like KJ or Breach, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't really quite matter what the strength of the ult is if you have a really good ult economy. And it really changes here the tide of how the round is going to be played. They have one ult, and what they do is they try to match that ult, okay? They match that ult with that of Sova ult. So now we have a counter ult being used for one. And then we have, well, we're not really going to invest in the other ults because we don't have anything else that can really change the tide. We only have the one. That was our one play, right? But what you're going to notice is that not only that, they had three other ults here that they could use for that round. So if they were losing to Sentinels here, they could spare one or two of these ults here to kind of change that. Obviously, I would tell someone to not invest more than two ults to fight one, right? And that's something that I notice a lot of players will kind of struggle with. They're like, I don't know when to use my ult. Sometimes I feel like I'm holding on to it too much. Okay, you can use two ults to battle one really strong ult. Okay, right here we had two strong ults being used, one after the other. And then the other one we decided to just use a little bit freely, a little bit more deliberately, just because it's knives. Okay, we have really good economy, and this is what I mentioned about the 3 rounds buffer that we had, so we can use those 3 rounds to get this one back if we really need it. So those 3 rounds can be a good buffer to get those ults, that ult back if we really need it, and we are continuously saving. So with that out of the way, those 2 ults were used because of that counter. Okay, I will make sure to kind of give a class more on the economy of those ults, and I'll make sure to kind of give you guys a even deeper understanding. But this is just a brief example on how you can do that. Okay. Another example would be use this and maybe pinch them with this ult, right? You can use Omen ult to kind of punch them from behind, kind of get an idea of what's going on. Okay, maybe you can start the round, get some information, follow it up with Aspas ult over here with Jet, right? So get some combinations going. There's a lot of different things that you guys can do, and as long as you have one extra ult, you should win the round. Okay, as long as you guys coordinate. And this one was just pretty simple. They just have the rounds for it, and they can just back each other up with knives. Okay, whether it paid off or not, it's completely up to you, but the pressure was there. Okay, so we're gonna close it up here. I'm gonna close it up here just because 1, the scrim is gonna be starting soon, and 2, I do not want to just get in a couple extra rounds just in case the power goes out again. So we're gonna be jumping over to scrims. I'm gonna close up this class. Before we do that, do we have any questions? Anything that you guys wanna bring up, anything that you guys learned that you're not too sure about, anything that you might be like, okay, well, how would I apply this to my Iron game? I don't know, like something like that. Just anything at all. Now's a good time.
What are some of like your main takeaways? Like, cause I was like kind of taking notes a little bit, like on a doc, and I have like some things written down, but I don't know if I got everything.
Okay. Well, whatever you got is it's completely different depending on your rank. So I'm just gonna give you the most general overview of the things you should be taking away from our main stars here, the KO. Okay, pay attention to positions when you're playing against the KO, both in attack and on defense. On defense, you should be looking for more of a shutdown of a push. Generally in ranked, you'll see yourself mostly using your knife to either get information or to shut down a push at the beginning. So pay attention to where your position is at all times. If you're playing towards A, then you will know that you're gonna be holding down A. Do not try to overextend yourself. Okay. On attack, try to make sure that you're paying attention to who you're playing with. So if, let's say, for example, you're using KO and you have a breach, you are the information initiator. Whereas if you're playing with someone like Sova, you are now the attack initiator. You're the aggressor. Okay. So you can be a lot more deliberate with your knives if you're the aggressor like they were here, right? So on attack, they were just using it in really close, tight corners like here. They were figuring out what they could do with this close space. So just figure out who you're playing with on attack, and that will kind of change your play style accordingly, which is what makes them a really good hybrid initiator. Okay. In terms of plays, make sure you're paying attention to how you're pivoting according to the lanes that you're playing. I mentioned how you do it on Bind and on Lotus as good examples, right? Make sure you're pivoting accordingly to what you think is going to be happening. So if you get information with the amount that these two provide, and when you play today, you might get a chance to kind of see that a little bit closer, but pay attention to the information that you guys are getting, and then make sure that you're pivoting accordingly to it. I'd rather you guys take a chance with the information that you guys have gathered instead of thinking 3 steps ahead, because unless you know, like I have right here where I can see everybody's kind of like silhouette, unless you have that information, there's really no way for you to get that right. So I'd rather you guys play for that information, and then once you start getting it wrong, you can start figuring out why. It could be as simple as maybe the lineup or the knife doesn't hit enough. Okay, maybe when you're using a dart, it's really not hitting the area that you want, and they can hide from it, right? It could be something as simple as that. And the last few things are eco. The big thing that I really mention is pay attention to how you're saving. I find that players tend to save after winning a bunch of rounds. There's no reason to save if there's no loss bonus. The loss bonus gives you way more than that of a round win, because if you get a round win and you're poor, you're gonna get nothing out of a save, because you're gonna save and then you're gonna lose that round, so you have to save again, and that doesn't really help your cause. Whereas when we saw from Sentinels, they they forced a round after like round 4, even though they hadn't won a single round, because they used a loss bonus. So pay attention to that. And then I kind of gave a brief overview of just ult economy, but I think I'll be covering that in more detail, so that's not a big deal. Those are the main points that we kind of covered. There's definitely other things that we kind of scattered across towards the VOD, but it was just more game type, specific, I would say. Hopefully that answers that question.
It's a
Okay, any others before I close? No? Okay, perfect. Okay, with that out of the way, you guys are going to be playing this exact comp, and you guys are going to be doing a mirror comp, meaning that I shouldn't see a Yoru on Ascent, because we're practicing this comp. Okay, I'm going to close.
Nano, in my personal opinion,